Timberwolves versus Spurs has been one of the craziest second round series I've ever seen in my entire life, and we're still only going into Game 6 in Minnesota next game. Let's start with talking about Game 1. Obviously, the biggest headlines going into Game 1 were the injuries to the Timberwolves. Dante DiVincenzo having a torn Achilles, and he's out for the rest of the playoffs. And then Ayo Dosunmu having a right calf soreness, right calf strain, who dropped 43 in one of the games in the Denver series, is also out in Game 1. And then Anthony Edwards had that hyperextended knee, comes back way sooner than expected, and ends up having a 25-minute restriction. And I mean, nobody thought he was going to be back for Game 1. He missed games in the Denver series. His knee was basically a parenthesis, and people thought he was going to be back for maybe Game 3 or 4, but he comes back for Game 1. The series is already off to an amazing start. And boom, we tip off Game 1, and Wemby comes out of the gate getting a bunch of blocks in the first half, but a lot of these were actually goaltends just missed by the refs. But nonetheless, Wemby ends up getting a triple-double with blocks, 12 recorded blocks. Obviously, 2 or 3 of them were goaltends, but he ends up setting the playoff record for blocks, and as you can see there, 5 for 17, 0 for 8 from 3, a generational stinker other than the blocks here for Wemby. And this game would come all the way down to the wire. Julian Champagnie step back 3 for the win. Oh, and he bricks it. Oh, and the Wolves are going to escape here with a win. And as you can see, the game was back and forth pretty much the entire game until the fourth quarter. The Wolves go on a huge run, and then the Spurs go on a huge run to almost come back and win, but Champagnie bricks the shot. And the Wolves win by 2. That game winner would have gone in. The Spurs would have won by 1, and now we're off to an amazing start to the series, a close game, and Wemby 12 blocks, and Anthony Edwards is back. We're due for some more. And Minnesota leads the series 1-0, as you can see there, heading into Game 2 in San Antonio, and everyone was kind of expecting Wemby to have a better game as he had a really generational offensive stinker. Let's see if he can bounce back. Wow, well, we know the Spurs as a team bounced back. This game was never close. I mean, maybe in the first quarter, but after that, the Spurs absolutely took an amazing lead and almost won the game by like 50. And Wemby would have a better game here, shooting 46%, 19 points, actually hitting some threes. Okay, still getting 15 boards too. Is just being effective all around here. And if there was a game for the Wolves to get blown out, it would be this game, because Anthony Edwards only played 24 minutes. He didn't have to expend a lot of energy after coming back early. He actually played less minutes in this game than Game 1. So yes, it's a big loss for the Wolves, but health-wise, it's kind of useful. And yes, the final score would be 95-133. Just an absolute blowout here for the Spurs bouncing back. And you know, the Wolves still did steal home court advantage winning Game 1. So now we're heading back to Minnesota. But before we do that, we need to talk about some of the stuff going on NBA Twitter, as after this game, a lot of people were starting to hate on Stephon Castle. Tweets saying like Steph Castle is entering tries to grift every time down the floor territory. Not great. And people were shocked that Castle was getting these calls when he's pushing off on Jaden McDaniels, and they're calling the fouls on Jaden. People saying Stephon Castle is an egregious foul baiter. Never want to hear another Spurs fan claim ethical hoops. That's just another storyline to take into account as we head into Game 3 in Minnesota with the series tied 1-1. And I will say, this game is really when the two fan bases of the Timberwolves and the Spurs really started to hate each other. And we haven't had that Wemby complete takeover game on offense like we had against the Blazers in round 1 in Game 1 when he went off for 30 or whatever it was. And we're really just waiting here for Wemby to kind of explode in one of these games. And tied 1-1 series back in Minnesota, a road game. This is a perfect opportunity for Wemby to do that. As you can see him getting hyped up, dapping up his teammates here. Man, that dude is so tall. He's like 8 feet tall, bro. 7'4", that's got to be wrong. But anyways, heading into Game 3, this game is huge for both teams. And as we can see here, Anthony Edwards off of a minutes restriction. He actually ends up playing a lot of minutes in this game, and we're heading into it. Oh my gosh, they're glazing Wemby hella, just only showing Wemby. They showed Anthony Edwards for like 2 seconds. But anyways, let's get into Game 3. And there it is. Wemby, 39 points, 15 rebounds, 5 blocks, 72% shooting, only 1 turnover, 5 fouls, but he doesn't foul out. He stays in the game. And this was the game we were kind of waiting for. Wemby explodes for a near 40 bomb. And after only playing 25 and 24 minutes in the first 2 games, Anthony Edwards plays 41 minutes and drops 32 points. And yes, the Timberwolves would still lose this game. And the Spurs would honestly kind of dominate the game. A little dip in the lead there for the Wolves in the early of the second quarter, but the Spurs pretty much dominated and held the lead for the entire game. It wasn't a blowout like Game 2, but the Spurs would end up winning by 7 points, 115-108, and take a commanding 2-1 lead in the series. And again, I hop on Twitter after the game, and people saying Spurs deserve to win, but boy, do they like to flop, Wemby and Castle in specific. And fans are kind of starting to catch on to this Castle-Wemby flop gimmick. And we're heading into Game 4, where the Spurs have a 2-1 lead, chance to take a commanding 3-1 lead lead in this series. This is an absolutely crucial game here for both teams. One team can extend the series. One team can almost put it away with a 3-1 lead. Let's see what happens. In 12 minutes into Wemby's game, he would throw an intentional elbow to Naz Reid's neck, and he would be ejected from the game. And we all know all the discourse about the ejection, and Wemby was sitting on the bench. He didn't even know he was being ejected, apparently, and he goes and he gets ejected, and both sides, both teams, both fan bases defending each other's side. And we're going to get into that, but first, we're going to take a look at the game. As you can see, a couple lead swings here, but the Wolves do end up winning this game and tying the series 2-2. Absolutely crucial for them to not go down 3-1 here. And Anthony Edwards plays 40 minutes, drops 36 on 59% shooting, and he basically takes over the game and says, we're not going down 3-1 without Wemby. We're going to tie this series. And we had Mitch Johnson after the game saying, I'm glad he took matters into his own hands, not in terms of hitting Naz Reid. He's glad Naz is okay, but he's glad that Wemby, took matters into his own hands, and he's basically said if the refs aren't going to protect Wemby, then Wemby has to protect Wemby. And Mitch Johnson isn't just talking about this game, he's talking about the entire series. He feels like the whistle hasn't been fair to Wemby, which is a little odd considering all the tweets we've looked at. Wolves fans think that the whistle has been fine for Wemby, but he's basically talking about this play as well, where Wemby is getting fouled. This is right before the elbow. Jaden McDaniels clearly has some of Wemby's jersey, and there was no foul call. And a lot of Spurs fans on Twitter were kind of defending Wemby, saying he's getting fouled, he's been getting hacked all series, and what are you supposed to do? You can't just sit there and get hacked. And we had other fans saying, I've had Spurs fans in the comments whining about players being too physical, but justifying Wemby intentionally elbowing a player's neck. Obviously, there's two sides of the story here. And probably the funniest tweet I've seen on NBA Twitter this whole season is they would have hit Draymond with a tranquilizer dart from the rafters. And we're seeing here more Wolves fans saying that Spurs fans are running with the ethical gimmick, and Wemby is now throat chopping people, and Castle is doing the head back bop gimmick thing. I mean, Wolves fans are clearly not happy with the style of play from the Spurs. And yes, I will start showing some Spurs fans tweets. Sorry, I've been showing a bunch of Wolves fans. Those are just the ones I had bookmarked. But y'all Wolves fans got to be more stupid than OKC fans. They call a foul on McDaniels. Wemby doesn't throw the elbow. It's a completely different game. So kind of saying if the refs were just calling the right fouls, none of this would happen. I get what they're saying, but I mean, obviously the elbow is never justified in my opinion. Now that Game 4 is over though, and the series is tied 2-2, more talks now on if Wemby will be suspended for Game 5. We have one of the biggest accounts on NBA Twitter here. Y'all have all seen this account. Says this is probably the easiest suspension the NBA can make, as people have been suspended for doing a little bit less worse things than this in the past, so people are expecting him to be suspended. And boom, Shams comes out. There will be no further discipline for Spurs star Victor Wembanyama after the ejection to Naz Reid. And what? No suspension, no fine? Isn't the minimum fine for a flagrant $2,000? I mean, this guy not getting suspended, not getting fined. We all know Wolves fans are going to be pissed. We know Spurs fans are going to be happy. I mean, this series is crazy. We're going into Game 5, pivotal 2-2 Game 5. Obviously, as a neutral fan looking at this, do I think Wemby deserved a 1-game suspension at least? Yes, I do think in the playoffs, it is a little harder to make that judgment call because every game matters. We're going into a Game 5 with a series tied 2-2. So the league deciding to not suspend him was a big decision. I do think he deserved a suspension, but he didn't get suspended. There's nothing we can do about it. He's playing Game 5. I mean, this is going to make for a more cinema series, but this is just where we're at. And now we're going into a Game 5 series tied 2-2 with Wemby coming off the ejection. Oh my goodness, we're back in San Antonio. This game is going to be sick. And Wemby coming off the ejection starts the game, 16 points in 6 minutes. And then later this play would happen where he would swipe Jaden McDaniels across the face. Looked like an accident, but ruled a common foul. And Wolves fans and NBA fans are saying, he's a dirty player, get him out of my league. And the Spurs would again pretty much dominate this game. The Wolves would go on a run in the third quarter to bring a 20-point lead down to about, I think, tie game. And then the Spurs would run away with it again and take the win. And the Spurs would win 97-126, taking a 3-2 lead. Now we are going into Game 6 in present day, and Wemby dropping 27-17-5 in a game that is controversial if he should even be playing in. And one thing I noticed is that the broadcast were kind of treating Wemby like a victim here, saying he's the wronged hero, kind of a redemption game, when in reality, I mean, he's the one who had a cortisol spike and elbowed Naz Reid. What? Why is he getting pampered? Blah, blah, blah. And I have a couple more tweets to look at. Most free throw differential in the 2026 playoffs is the Timberwolves with -54, but Spurs fans all over Twitter are kind of complaining about the refs. I mean, they were obviously complaining about the refs pre-Wemby elbow and everything like that, saying he's getting hacked, no call. But the Wolves here statistically getting less calls. And as you can see, the Spurs and the Spurs fans also in general, everything Spurs kind of getting wrapped up into a little bit of a villain role here. Obviously with the Wemby elbow, him coming back, no suspension, the foul calls, everything like that. The Spurs are honestly becoming a villain, and it's likely going to be a Spurs versus OKC Western Conference Finals villain versus villain. I'm excited. I think that the Spurs will probably take it in 6, if not 7. We'll be talking about it more, but hope you guys enjoyed this little recap of this crazy series so far. And if you like the video, subscribe, check out my other videos. I'm an NBA diehard fan. I'll see y'all.